that here was this woman who we were very close in age and very close, and she had overcome a lot of the same things from our childhood that I hadn't overcome. Great marriage, really safe in who she was and this whole deal. And now she's starting a journey that's going to lead to her certain death. And at the same time, I'm starting a journey that's going to lead me to finally start living. And so I was like, man, you can't mess that up, right?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mental Purpose Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Lobas. Today, I have maybe one of the most entertaining / deep conversations / impactful conversations that I've ever had. You just heard that intro. It was like 3 minutes long because I felt like my guest, Dave Richman, I felt like he was so succinct in that 3 minutes that I just made the whole thing the intro. So thank you for listening to that entire thing. Look, Dave's an impressive guy. He's got a 4-page bio, and I don't even know where to start with it. So I want to make this intro quick because this episode is long and it's really impactful. And in all honesty, I didn't expect half the stuff that we talked about to come up. I'm going to give you a little bit about Dave's bio, and then I'm going to give you a bunch of the stuff that we're going to learn, and then we're getting right into it. So he's an entrepreneur, an author, a public speaker, an athlete, a philanthropist. He uses the lessons learned in his life to enrich and inspire others. And as a former sedentary, overweight smoker, Dave knew that he needed to focus not on what others wanted out of him, but what he wanted out of life. And so the first thing that we start to talk about is his relationship with his mom and why he was the overweight, sedentary smoker. Well, he was busting his ass in corporate life, trying to be somebody, trying to get someone to notice him and just approve of him and be something for somebody. And then what happened was, he was in a terrible relationship and it was toxic. And then he finally looked in the mirror, right? He finally looked in the mirror and started understanding the person staring back. And that's where we start this journey. And it goes into trauma and mastering self-talk and becoming an Ironman and setting his sights really high and like being the guy in the mirror that cares about the guy in the mirror and not other people's opinion. And we talk about, like quitting. No one actually cares, but you'll know. And goals that you set for you and not anybody else on the outside. And we talk about everything being a learning exercise and how to know when to give up and setting your goals based on what's at stake, not based on what other people are going to think about you. I mean, we go all over the place. I mean, the guy rode 5,000 miles across the country and then up the East Coast, like California to Florida, and then up the East Coast. I mean, I was so impressed by the trajectory of his life and the mastery of himself and his own development. It's so special. So look, I'm not going to talk anymore. His book is called Cycle of Life, by the way. Go buy it. All the proceeds go to charity. And I was just so impressed with his journey and overcoming so much and then giving back and helping people understand their traumas and how to dig in and emotionally like dive deep to speak about what's bothering them about, their family member or their child who has a terminal illness. Like, oh my God, the guy was just solidly impressive. You are really you're going to enjoy this episode. You're going to learn so much. Don't be in your car at the gym. I mean, if you are, that's fine. Just, I want you to take notes. If you really want to get something out of it, take notes. There's so much that Dave drops. So look, thank you for being here. We always appreciate your support. And if you haven't yet, join the Mental Purpose community on Facebook. It's free. Download our free ebook and mini course called The Purpose Driven Formula. And anything you want now lives at menonpurpose.net. menonpurpose.net or my website, ianlobas.com. They both go to the same place. Or mentalpurposepodcast.com. They all go to the same place. All right, you ready? Here we go. All right, Dave, welcome to the podcast. We're going to jump in feet first into the deep end, man.
Let's do it, Ian. I need to get a swim in anyways. Let's do it.
So you are, audience, we're like deep end. So Dave, you are overweight, out of shape, full-time smoker, with in a relationship with an abusive alcoholic with twin 4-year-old girls. And I want to know how you got there. And I also want to know how you got out. And so does the audience. I'm very curious. How did your life get to that point? Because I know there's some people listening that are in potentially a similar situation and they're going, nobody understands me. No one gets my situation. Well, I'm pretty sure that you do. So how do you get
Yeah.
there?
Well, I do, but only because like your low point's your low point. It's not somebody else's low point,
Of course.
right? So here I am I'm running $100 million business for a major Wall Street firm, right? I got a nice house and, I got some good friends and I'm having fun, and I got boats and whatever, but I'm a wreck. Like I'm a wreck. That's a really low point for me because I'm completely stressed out. Like you said, I'm overweight by like 60 pounds. I'm eating a pack to a pack and a half a day of cigarettes. I'm as stressed out as could ever be. How am I going to get out of this relationship? How am I going to get my kids taken care of? Like, I mean, it's just, I'm at the end of my rope,
How
and
old were you?
I was 38 years old.
That's crazy, man. That's young.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's young.
38. And now, look, how did I get there is your question. And how I
Mm-hmm.
got there was that I had a rough childhood. Who doesn't? I had a rough young adulthood. Who doesn't? And I just had to figure out a way to solve my problems and make my way through life. And so I was like this overachieving, kind of like focused on the world. And I got into the bad habit of measuring my success based on how other people perceived me, women,
Yeah.
bosses, whatever, employees, whatever. And so I used to say that I learned a ton of really, really hard lessons, and they were valuable, amazing lessons. I just never knew how to apply them to myself. And so when I woke up one day and I went, well, it was a friend who told me, like, dude, like everything in your life, this is what he said to me. And he said, everything in your life is like a rabid dog, and you go to pet it because you think, oh, you're so special. You could pet the rabid dog and it won't bite you. And then it'll bite you. And you're like, what the F?
Right.
He goes, why don't you start looking in the mirror and solve your own problems and stop trying to solve everybody else's? And I'm like, whoa, that's some heavy stuff. And I got the leverage I needed to kind of get out of that situation at home, and that put me in front of a mirror. And I just went like, "Who the hell are you?" And I was that guy. And I
Yeah.
said, "That's not who you want to be, man. You got to figure something out. You got to make a change." So for me, how I got there was a bunch of bad decisions. A guy who just looked for problems so I could solve them and be a hero. A guy
Hmm.
who looked for bad relationships so I could make up for the fact that my mom hated her kid. Right. So all the wrong things that you don't know until after you do them that you've done it. And then there I am at this low point going, man, like who are you and what do you want to be? Because if this is it, man, just pack it up and go home.
Dude, you
Does
know
that make
what's
sense?
interesting? Yeah, hell yeah. I loved all of that. In fact, I'm gonna make that whole 3-minute clip the intro because
Ah,
that was the most succinct train wreck that I've ever heard of. And everybody's got a train wreck, right? Everybody's got the train wreck of their lives. And if you haven't had the train wreck, if you don't have those extreme low points, you're probably not pushing hard enough. And or your trauma wasn't the same and you're seeking love in codependent relationships, or, and maybe you got one aspect. You were just beating yourself in every aspect, the relationship, the job, the body, the self. You were hitting everything. And
yeah.
it's and at 38 years old, my story was very similar at 33 years old. My daughter was 1. Yeah, she just turned 1. I wasn't beating myself up as much, yet I was in a place where I'm like, what is my life about, man? I'm 33 years old. I'm in this business that I don't love. I'm in a marriage that isn't working, and I'm not sure how to make it work because I don't know how to make me work. I don't know how to put a smile on my face in the morning. So how the hell am I supposed to put a smile on these two ladies' faces, my wife and my daughter?
Mm-hmm,
And I was just heading downhill fast,
mm-hmm.
real fast. And everybody's journey is their journey. And so I want to dig into that because you mentioned you had a mom that didn't love her kid,
Mm-hmm.
and that sparks curiosity in my mind. So you okay with digging into that for a second? We're just
Yeah,
talking about it.
sure. So,
Okay.
so, so again, like sometimes I'm embarrassed to say, "Oh, this was rough," because I know people have it rougher, right? And other people might look at me and go, how the hell did you
Yeah.
ever deal with that? That's the roughest thing I
Yeah.
ever heard. So I don't know, right?
It's
So
all
I'm just telling you
relative.
my story, you know? So when I was born, my mom was 21 and my dad was 59.
Whoa.
So we're talking a 38-year difference. And back when I was born, 59 was freaking old. And, when they were married, 56 and 18, she was pretty young, and she had
Wow.
come from a pretty bad situation at home. And I think she was just too young to want kids. I don't even think she really even liked kids. I came to find out she didn't.
Yeah.
My dad was too old to really know what to do to deal with kids. I'm 10, he's 70. Like back
Yeah.
then, what's a 70-year-old going to do with a 10-year-old kid? And my sister was 12. Um, so that caused a lot of problems. And I had a mom who, one day you would do one thing and she would go like, "Oh my God, you're such a prince. I love you to death. It's the greatest thing ever." And the next day you would do the exact same thing and she would start wailing on you going, "What the F were you thinking? That's the
Yeah.
stupidest thing you could ever do. You're just a moron." And I'm like, huh. So I just didn't know, like, what do I got to do to make somebody else happy, because I don't know what the hell I did to make her so mad. So I think that was a learning process for me, and I was always trying to search for what's going to make other people happy, because I had no idea. It couldn't just be me. I had to do something special, because just being me oftentimes was exactly the wrong thing. And so I think, that's how to unpack that situation. I
Yeah.
think people,
They'll
especially
get it.
men,
Yeah.
can probably relate to that, because, you act a certain way because you think you're going to be perceived this way, or
Sure.
it's like,
Yeah.
I kind
100%.
of get it, but I
Yeah.
didn't know it until I knew it, you know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you don't know what you don't know until you figure out that you didn't know it.
Yeah.
It's like it's it until you know you now don't did you know you didn't know. Did
Yeah.
you ever have a chance to a lot of our clients, we speak about mom things, challenges, issues, whatever you want, because
Mhm.
um I talk a lot about the movement through and the evolution of the relationship with my mom. And did you ever have a chance to speak with your mom about this and get clarity or get any kind of resolution or peace?
So when I was 18, Ian, my dad had lost, most of his mental capacity, and my mom was not very nice at that time, and I left. I left the home
Hmm.
and uh, left in the cover of night. Just I wanted out, so I left. And it was a year or so before I spoke to her. And when I did, it wasn't a very long or very friendly conversation. And then I talked to her maybe a couple of times over the years, but usually very short and very unpleasant conversations. Fast forward to about 15 years later, my kids were born, and I won't go into all the details on it, but she still was not in my life more than having had a handful of very, very short conversations. And I
Yeah,
invited her to come into my life if we could deal with those issues.
sure.
And she basically, middle fingered me and said, no,
Wow.
screw
Wow.
you. So I said, okay. So then about 5 years later, my sister had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and she was literally, she was, going to die. It's just a matter of when. And so I ran into my mom at the hospital and I said, hey, should we give this one more try? And she basically said, F you. And
Wow.
I haven't heard from her since. That was
Why? Do you know
more than
why?
15 years ago.
She was so
Um,
hurt, clearly. I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
wow.
I, 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 I really don't know. Cause,
Are you
um,
did you process through that and kind of just make peace with it, or do you still wish that there could be something?
I have made some peace with it. I haven't made full peace with it, because like I do expressive writing workshops. Okay.
Yeah.
This morning I did an expressive writing workshop online, and one of the prompts was, who do you need to forgive?
Hmm.
Even if it's you or somebody else. And can you write a letter to that person?
Yeah.
And I said, sometimes you can't forgive, right? Like I haven't learned how to forgive my mom, right? What mom doesn't want to talk to their, especially because like I'm a good guy. Like I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything bad. I just I'm a good guy. So why the heck does she not want a relationship with her son? I guess that's her problem. And so the way that I've processed it is to say, I have a wonderful relation with my kids. I have a marriage that's phenomenal with the right person. I have a lot of great female relationships and a lot of great male relationships, young, old, middle, and in between. And I kind of came to the conclusion, Ian, that, you know what? I'm a 10,000 piece puzzle. Okay.
Yeah.
And I spent, 50 odd years putting the 10,000 pieces together, and I still have more to put in,
Of
but
course.
I just realized that the manufacturer sent the box with a few missing pieces. I, I'm just never gonna have those pieces. And so
I
what am
get
I
it.
gonna do? Toss the puzzle away?
I like the way you put
Sometimes,
that, man. I like the way you put that. I'm a 10,000 piece puzzle and the manufacturer forgot to send a couple pieces. Like, that's the at peace part. That's the being at peace with, look, there's going
yeah.
to be some shit missing. Then I've got to just be okay with that. I can't write to the manufacturer for the rest of my life and request these pieces. They're never going to show up.
They're never
Like,
gonna show I'm never
there's no
gonna get an
hotline.
answer to that.
Right. Right.
So I might not be at peace with it, but I'll tell you what, when I look at the puzzle, like I
Yeah.
see those few holes from the missing pieces, but it's not, I see the puzzle, dude. I see the
Okay.
10,000 pieces. I don't see the
Yeah.
three missing pieces that much.
I love that. I think I think it's one of the most fascinating and interesting explanations that I've ever heard about the about a human's evolution and a human's makeup. For real, that's a really
Oh,
cool way of
thanks.
saying
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Hey, it took me a long time to figure that out and to
yeah,
be able to say it, and also to be somewhat at peace with it, right? Because man, I could beat myself up for a few things I did my whole life, and man, it doesn't feel good. But at some point, you just got to let go, right?
yeah. I mean, what advice would you have? I mean, obviously, we don't have the whatever you call it, like the end of the rainbow pot of gold with the mom story. Yet,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you could still give advice to people out there who are maybe they are in touch with their moms, or maybe they are maybe they have a relationship and they're just they're like this, yet they want something deeper. What would you do if you had the opportunity now? Like, what would you advise somebody to do to break through and actually get that? Because look, you can't make her have that relationship, yet you can certainly try different things. What would you advise somebody to do?
I could, but I feel like this. Okay, this is a weird analogy. I just making it up as we go. So I've not said this before. So if it sounds stupid, everybody, I apologize. So broccoli is really good for me, and I've tried it 3 or 4 times, and I just got to realize I don't like broccoli.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Totally.
I've given it the effort,
Yeah.
and I can't make myself like broccoli. I can't make myself continue to try because if what's the upside? She's missed my whole life anyway. She obviously didn't care. I've got
Right.
enough really great relationships and enough value in my life. And
Sure.
I mean, maybe the dark relationship that, or the dark places I've had because of no relation with my mom, maybe that's helped me in other ways. I don't
Sure.
know. And I'm sure there's going to be at some point where I'm going to go, I wish I would have done this, or I wish she would have done that, but I'm not in control of any of that
Yeah.
because I've tried and I don't know. I just got to go. It's just a missing piece, man.
Yeah.
There's
It's
10,000
such
other
a
great
big piece,
pieces.
though. It is a big
I hear
piece.
you.
I don't know.
Facts,
I'm just curious
facts.
about that because I do have a lot of guys in our mental and purpose world that have that same challenge, and their desire, they're younger guys, and their desire is still there. And I'm always just curious as to what somebody, obviously there isn't that completed, the puzzle piece isn't there. So
Right.
your advice is theoretical, and I'm totally cool with that. And I get the broccoli analogy too. That's just a very big piece of the puzzle, right? It's a
I
keystone
hear you.
piece.
Look, dude, if the pot of the gold at the end of the rainbow is for me to have a la la conversation and she goes, even though I'm 80 and, I've missed your whole life, I
Right.
love you.
Right.
Okay. If
What is
that's
that
going
going
to
to
solve
do?
my problems, then
No,
I'll go
no, no,
for
no,
it. But
no. I don't think it will.
it's terrible. I wish it was a different way. I
I know.
wish it was. God, dude, my twins, it's a boy and a girl, not two girls, but they're
Oh,
24
thanks.
now. If I go a
Yeah.
day or two without talking to them, I feel like, it's the worst thing ever, right? I'm so
Right.
close to my kids. Could
Yeah.
you imagine going 20 years without seeing your
No.
daughter?
No. No. I have a daughter and a son. I had an amazing moment last night with my daughter that I want to share real quick. Where I had uh, a client who needed to move a time an appointment 2 o'clock, and so I looked in my weekly planner and I was like, the only thing that means something to me right now is taking my daughter to the pool. That's it. Like, I don't need to keep working because it's 2 o'clock. I broke free from that bullshit rhetoric of you work during these hours. I have my own business, so I don't have to do that. We went to the
Right.
pool and we took our GoPro and I taught her some new hand signals for scuba diving because she wants to scuba with me. And so we came back and we were watching the GoPro videos at night after my wife's friend taught her how to make sushi. And she sat on my lap and she pulls out this little phone and she hits the video and she says, Dad, I want to do a video for my channel. She thinks she has a YouTube channel. I want to do a video for my channel um, about the things that we love about each other. And man, I fucking lost it.
Mm,
She's sitting on my lap right here,
how
and the phone's
sweet.
right here up on the computer, and I'm like, oh my God, how do I stay tight on this one? And I was just like so overjoyed by the person that she is and the freedom to express herself from the relationship she has with me, from who I am. And so, no, I can never imagine
Right.
ever not having or not being the person as a parent that my child needs me to be for the best evolution that they can ask for, right? It's not going to be perfect ever, just the best evolution that they could get. And I'm
Yeah.
just very curious about that.
I know. It's a
I'm not
conundrum.
going to stay. Let's not stay on that topic.
We
You
could
got some
talk about
amazing
it a
stuff,
lot.
man.
I just, sometimes I go, well, people go, this guy must be a real dick because who doesn't want to have a relation with their mom? And I'm like, well, geez, I mean, I would like to, but
Sure,
if I lost my finger in an industrial accident, am I going to walk around going, what the hell, man? I want my finger back. Well, eventually you got to accept the fact that your finger's cut off, dude. I mean, what
sure,
can you do about it?
sure. There's two schools of thought. I agree with at a certain point you have to accept the fact that it's a two-way street, and the other side of the street is completely blocked. Can't get through. Got to go another
Yeah.
route.
Yeah.
And right, and then there's the other one of like, and it's your mom, the giver of life, the biggest puzzle piece that is your life. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
giver. And so that's the thing that I process is,
Yeah. Did you ever see that? Everybody probably has seen the movie. You ever see a movie, Bruce Almighty?
yeah,
Yeah. So remember when he's trying to like scream at Jennifer Aniston, "Why won't you love me?"
yes,
Right?
yeah,
He can't make her he can't make her love him.
yeah,
Well, I think that same way. Uh,
sure.
I can't make you love me. So if you don't, you don't.
No,
It hurts. I hate it. I wish it was a
sure,
different way.
sure.
I wish I could reconcile it. I wish I could forgive you for it. I wish all of that stuff, but it just no.
What's
So what the
interesting
hell?
is it's channeled so much of the work that you do for the world. I
Yeah,
feel like that is it's a major catalyst toward it, and so you're turning lemons into lemonade anyway. So that's really
yeah,
cool, and I want to just understand a little bit more about how you really got out of that. How did you get yourself in back in shape? How did you leave the marriage? How did you stop smoking? How did you get onto this
sure.
path that you're on today?
Well, it all happened all in a very short period of time, right? I got the leverage I needed to get out of the relationship and not be ruined with I got 50-50 custody of the kids with no lawyers and no money back and forth. And,
That's good.
I got to drive everyone. And so, I got everything that I needed to get. So I was good. Kids were good. And, honestly, Ian, it sounds stupid, but I did. I stood in front of a mirror in the bathroom and I just like, who are you? I just said it over and over and over. And who I was a stressed out, bad decision making, uh, overweight smoker. And I said, "Is that what you want to be?" And it isn't. It's not what I want it to be. So I just said, "Okay, you got to change." So I didn't know this at the time, but I've known it since, and maybe a little in little bits. It didn't maybe hit me as a lightning bolt, but I know that I went through a process at that particular point where I kind of forgave myself.
Hmm.
So I was honest. Here's who you are. Here's the guy in the mirror. And then I went through a process of forgiving myself. Like you didn't know then what you know now. So just like forgive yourself. Just move on. And then I just figured it out. I just wanted to learn. So for me, learning was I did the math. If I wanted to lose weight, I had to become active and eat less. And if I wanted to stop smoking, I had to do things that would not be normal to me, which in my case was starting to become athletic because I couldn't swim and smoke at the same time, right? I could
Right.
do almost anything and smoke,
Right.
but I couldn't run and smoke. I couldn't be on a bike and smoke. I couldn't swim and smoke. So I said, let's do all those things because I got to do everything different. Otherwise, I'm just going to adapt to being an overweight smoker and do other things. So
Right.
I just said, okay, let's go for a run. I couldn't make it 0.2 miles. I couldn't make it without
Yeah.
without falling over. And then I just said, all right, well, you can either try to run again for 5 minutes or smoke. And I didn't want to smoke. So I ran for 5 minutes and then I could run a mile and then 3 miles. And then I did a 5K, a 10K. And then literally in like 9 months later, I did my first Ironman triathlon. And
Nine
I
months later.
9 months later, yeah,
Shit.
I still was overweight. Hadn't smoked from the day I quit. I hadn't smoked, and I hadn't done any of those distances on their own. But I just said, "Screw it, man! Just set your sights higher and higher and higher, and you might as well. Because if you fail, at least you're trying something kind of amazing." And I also had another motivator, and that was in that same time period where I'm looking in the mirror trying to figure out who I am. That's when my sister had told me that she's got terminal brain cancer. And I
Mm.
was really touched by this idea that here was this woman who we were very close in age and very close. And she had overcome a lot of the same things from our childhood that I hadn't overcome.
Yeah.
Great marriage, really safe in who she was and this whole deal. And now she's starting a journey that's going to lead to her certain death. And at the same time, I'm starting a journey that's going to lead me to finally start living.
Wow.
And so I was like, man, you can't mess that up. Right. And I had that dichotomy kind of like giving me perspective, forcing me to stay on track, as it were, and so that all of that combined, let me do it. And then I and this, I'm sorry if this sounds cliche-ish, but it really is the truth, is that I started to like look forward to and appreciate the fact that what the guy in the mirror thought of me was way more important than what anybody else thought of me.
Hmm.
And if I'm being a good guy and I'm doing the right things and I'm working hard and being a good parent, a good boss, a good friend or whatever, then I can look at the guy in the mirror and go, well, what do you think? Because I'd never done that, right? I was always looking for external
Yeah.
sources to tell me, hey, you're a good guy or you're doing the right thing or here's what you need to do to get happy or whatever. No. So I started to do that. And when I did that, that that was a real changing point for me when I gave myself the ability. Can I tell you a super quick question, Ian?
Please.
Or tell you a super quick story. So I'm getting ready so I quit smoking in end of January because it was my kid's birthday. I made a promise to him. In July, I go to do a half Ironman. Okay, I'm fat. I'm not an athlete.
Yeah.
And I get up to the start line, and it's one of these wave starts. So it's not a group start, right? It's a wave start. I get to watch people go. And I'm like, what the F? Every single dude was chiseled out of marble. They're Greek
Right.
gods. They're wearing their little Speedos. They got no fat on them. Every chick is like hot and tone and like athletic, and they're all like got their gear. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, you're such a loser. What the hell are you doing here? These people are Iron Men and they're athletes. And you don't belong in this group and da da da. Da. And I'm getting ready to just pack it up and go home because I don't belong there. Right. And compared to them, of course I
Of
don't. And
course.
then the gun goes off and the first wave goes, and like one of these Greek god dudes, he flops on his back and he starts backwards doggy paddling, and another guy starts, swimming to the side of the river because he doesn't know how to swim.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
started laughing to myself, but I go, oh, geez, dude, like, why don't you worry about yourself and not everybody else? Because they're clearly not worried about anybody else. And so it was a really freeing moment for me to go, hey, you know what? Why don't you just worry about you for a change and not anybody else? Like, nobody's looking, nobody cares. Just do it for you. And it's kind of cool to know that nobody's looking and nobody cares. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, I always thought everybody cared. Like, oh, I'm so important that everybody cares, right? Everybody's watching me. Like, I got to do XYZ so I can get their approval. Hell, I don't even know you. Like,
Right.
stop it.
What's interesting is, when did that ever become a thing? Like, when did you, and I'm thinking about that for me too. In my 20s, all I cared about was what people thought about me. And I never ever got the memo that anybody actually gave a shit. I never got this memo that was like, hey, by
I
the way,
know.
everybody's fucking watching you. Better be
Yeah,
careful. Better drive the right car. No one ever sent me that memo. I just
I
somehow
know.
downloaded that. It was so important what others thought. And the reason why my relationships were shit, even before my marriage, was because I was so concerned with what other people thought that I didn't know who
I
I
know.
was. And
I
what's
wrote a
interesting?
yes,
Yeah,
I wrote a
yeah,
book called Winning in the Middle of the Pack.
yeah,
That is this
yeah.
idea of when you're
Mindset.
in the middle of the pack, nobody's watching, nobody cares, nobody's
Yes.
looking to see if you finish, right? You're
Yeah.
doing it for your own reasons. And yeah, I wish somebody would have given me that memo earlier too, because it's strangely, there's another side of that that's strangely way more important than what you just said. And that is because we got to admit, well, maybe we don't know it, but eventually we're going to admit that nobody cares, nobody's watching, right? You know what else? They're not holding us to nearly as high of a standard as we would hold ourselves to. And so if it was really important for some douchebag you barely knew to say, achieve this goal, you might
Right.
do it because you're like, oh, I need their approval. But if
Right.
you wanted to achieve that goal, you do it. Like
Yeah.
right? Higher goal, way more motivated to do it, but you just never cared about what you thought. You cared more
Right.
about what they thought. And honestly, they don't even care.
Yeah. What's
It's
interesting?
crazy. It's
The
crazy.
moment my life opened up was the moment that I could stand in the mirror and look at myself and say two things. One, I love you, truthfully love you to myself. And two, you actually fucking matter to this world without anything except for you. No cars, houses, business, money, status, nothing. Watches, nothing. You matter to the world. And when I finally was able to do that, my whole life opened up. It was kind of crazy. And I have this book, Mirror Work, for those of you watching on YouTube, Louise Hay
Ah,
book, Mirror Work. It always sits next to me because it's such a simple concept, yet it's so powerful. And what's really interesting about triathlons is I used to I used to teach swimming lessons to triathletes before I started my real estate career like 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. I made like $10 an hour. And I
yeah.
felt like I was such a loser, yet I could matter to them because I had this expertise that they didn't have. And I could kind of fit in with the cool kids. And that's the real, and I was teaching kids too for $10 an hour. Yet I mattered because I could teach you something that you didn't know. And then when I started to channel that into something more purposeful, somebody in real estate, a title rep, said to me, have you ever swam before? You have big, broad shoulders and a skinny waist. And I said, yeah, I swam for NBAC. And she was like, oh my gosh, you know your shit. Will you be one of the swimmers for Swim Across America to help
Oh,
cancer
yeah,
survivors? And I said,
yeah.
yes, 100%. And so one of the one of the girls that I trained, she said to me, same thing like you. She's like, how am I gonna make this? Like, look at all these people that look like they know what they're doing. And I said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stand here and we're gonna watch all these people run into the water like they know exactly what they're doing. And I guarantee you that half this crowd is gonna step down and stand up for a second. They're all gonna be on their side doing like side stroke. They're gonna be on their
Yes.
back like an old bug, just
Yeah.
trying to get through. And this girl and I just watched, and I said, look, it doesn't matter what my talent is. I'm here to help you. I don't care. Like, I don't care. And I learned that. So same thing, man. Winning in the middle of the pack is fuck, that might be, I'm writing down all these potential names for titles for this episode because you're dropping
Right.
such cool little phrases. It's,
Well, thank you, man.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
This
really
is not how I
passionate
thought the
about this.
conversation would go, by the way. I thought the conversation was going to be so different. And I'm
Yeah.
absolutely loving what's opened up here.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. I love talking to you. When I first decided to do an Ironman, like, and I've done like 18 of them, right? So
It's
when I
awesome.
first started to do one, I watched these videos of Ironman triathlons
Yeah.
at the World Championships, and one of them had one of the founders of Ironman come on. Before I had ever done my first Ironman, I heard this guy talk, and he said Ironman is this thing where you're going to want to quit 1,000 times
Yeah.
throughout the
Yeah.
day. And he goes, and if you do, nobody's going to care,
No.
but you're always going to know. And I went, oh, that is a nugget. You mean nobody
Shit.
cares? I love that. I love that. Because I thought everybody cares. And guess what? I realized I'm just not that freaking important. Nobody cares.
No one cares, but you
Yeah.
will know.
But you'll always know. How great is that? And stop worrying about what other people think and care more about what you think. And that was
Yeah.
that was my kind of first real lesson to learn on how to move forward in life and
Yeah.
not just kind of be dragged along. Does that make sense?
100%. There's an interesting piece as the leader of this Men on Purpose movement and the podcast and our community where I know people are watching me. Yet
Hmm.
it's a very different thing, like people watching you and worrying about what people think versus modeling good behavior or positive or successful or on purpose behavior. Because I make decisions, sometimes my old way of thinking will come in and go, nobody's really looking, dude. I mean, you can bypass that. And I go, no, somebody's watching. Someone is counting on me to make a decision in this moment. And I need to be able to honestly say to them, no, when no one's looking, that's when it's most important that you honor your integrity and your commitment to whatever you made a commitment to.
True.
Yeah.
True. What
Yeah.
I'm talking about is when you're measuring what your self-worth
Totally.
is and when you're measuring what kind of effect you're having on the world and what the world's having on you, what's the
Yep.
most important is the person in the mirror. And
Yes.
it's not easy for guys
Yeah.
like me. It's not easy to do that because I always thought like, wow, if I make a chick smile, that means I was doing something right. Oh,
Right. Right.
if I got an employee that says you're a good boss, that means I'm a good boss, right? Like,
Well, it's your feedback loop. You're getting
right.
feedback all the time, seeking it, feeding it. Like it. That's it. That's the other side of what I was talking about. I have
Mhm,
when I came into alignment with my purpose and my understanding of what I'm supposed to do for the world. That's when modeling came into play, where I don't worry about what people think, and I don't worry about what I look like. I think about the type of example that I'm being for people that are looking up to me, and that's important to me. And now I don't go, oh God, are they going to be pissed at me if I make this decision? It's like, no, that's not my commitment. My commitment is to do the right thing. My commitment is to honor my commitments. My commitment is to
mhm.
have integrity, and that's okay. And all those people could look at me when I do this thing that's honoring my commitment and go, you're an idiot. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion.
Right,
You're not going to knock me around by calling me an idiot or
right.
saying, man, I thought you were better than whatever. It's a very different mindset because, like I said, I can look in the mirror and say, and I do every morning, and really any chance I get in a reflective surface, I love you, man. And you fucking matter to me. And you
Yeah.
also matter to the world, yet you matter to me first. Me matters to me first. And so I'm telling you, out of the probably 8,000 hours I've done of personal development, of coaches coaching, and on my own work and coaching other people, that is probably one of the most powerful things that I've ever done for myself is to actually
Mhm.
register inside that I matter to me and that I don't
Yeah.
have to seek external validation.
And it sounds kind of preachy and prescriptive,
Sure.
but it's
Sure.
not until you know it. Like I went on this podcast and this guy talked about the idea of Sonder, and Sonder is meaning of Sonder says when it's a state of mind where you understand that you're just passerbyers in everybody's life, and they're just a passerby in yours. And he talks about Sonder, and I love that. I love that idea because I've
Mm-hmm.
got some passerbyers in my life that were in there for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and that 2 minute interaction has stayed with me forever.
I would
And I have
agree.
other people in my life that, yeah, I've known for 30 years, and all of a sudden I don't talk to them ever again, and I forget who they were. Right.
Isn't that
So
weird? Isn't that
yeah, it's
just
weird.
not weird? Like the concept of it's just strange. You're like,
It's strange.
I've
So
had clients that I'm like so close with, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, it's time. The why has come. It's time to just go
right.
our separate ways, and it's
But we
gone.
are just passerbyers in their life, and they're just passerbyers in ours,
Yeah,
and that makes it
yeah,
okay. It makes it
fine.
okay.
Yeah,
And so it's just anyway. I think we are definitely walking down a parallel road
yeah,
with these
yeah.
thoughts because it is a wonderful place to start. And then for me, the it was a 3-step process, right? So one is like looking in the mirror and being honest and saying, here's who
Sure.
I am. The second one is to forgive, right? Just like forgive, like just you didn't know then, you made stupid decisions or yeah, whatever, but just like start.
You're
And
talking
then
about forgive you and others, or just others, or both?
I think it was forgiving myself, like freeing
Okay.
my mind, like okay, like just free your mind, like just let go of the burden, let go of the cynicism, let go of the chip on your shoulder, whatever it is
Yeah.
for whoever. And for me, maybe it was all of those things, but it was just like kind of forgive, just free your mind. Like,
Yeah.
why can't today be day one?
Right.
I mean, it sounds silly, but it can be. It can be.
It is. You just don't
We'll make
think
it.
so, right? You can
Just
make
make
it.
it.
It is day one. It is the next minute. And I preach this all the time. Your future you is one choice away. The future you that creates the results you want is literally one choice away. At every moment, it's your choice. 1 minute, 1 second, it's your choice. Crazy to think about
But
that
you got to free
concept.
your mind in order to be able to do that, right?
This
So
is true.
I had to free my mind. Then the third thing, which was a long process, is what can I learn? And that's the thing that's driven me for the last 20 years of doing this stuff and writing books and learning all this crap and doing expressive writing workshops and all of that is the learning part. I'll tell you another quick story because
Please.
it's always athletics that hit me. So one of the very first events that I did was a 85-mile rollerblade race in Georgia.
Jeez.
First of all, I'm not coordinated enough to be on rollerblades, let alone be 85 miles on rollerblades. It's completely stupid, right? And Georgia doesn't have a flat.
Right, right.
It's all hills.
Yeah.
So I'm about 30 miles in and I'm completely toasted. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no business being there. And I'm going up this hill that's kind of like, I think the name of it was even Heartbreak Hill. And there's no way I'm going to make it up the hill. Like it's completely stupid.
Yeah.
And if I did, I'd have to make it down, which I'm going to die going down the hill that fast. And then I still got another 50
Right.
miles on
50
rollerblades,
miles.
like stupid. So I turn my skates to be perpendicular to the hill, and I lean over on my knees, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like this is just the stupidest thing. You don't belong here. Just give it up. And I'm looking down and it's hot, it's all humid, and I'm sweating like a pig, and the water is just dripping off me and it makes this line. Okay. And I go, okay, all right, here it is. Either that's the line, that was the most you could be. Now just go home and just pack it up. Like you know everything about yourself. It's all
Yeah.
good. I mean, you came a long way. You know everything about yourself. It's all good. Or figure out a way to go one more step, dude. Because if you do, you're going to learn. Now, maybe you're going to learn that you're going to die going down the hill, or maybe you're going to learn that you can't make it up the hill, or maybe you're going to learn what, but at least just take one more step. You're going to learn something new. And so I just kept doing that. I kept thinking everything that I do is not more of an effort. It's not more of an accomplishment. It's not a test. It's not a whatever. It's just a learning exercise. And that was the
Yeah.
draw for me. And so I did make it to the finish line. 9 hours later, I made it to the finish line and I learned about 1,000 things along the way. And I don't know what I accomplished, what I didn't accomplish. All of that stuff doesn't matter. All I know is that I learned. And every time I do an event, I kind of look at it as a learning experience, or anything that I do,
Of
because
course.
I feel like if you know who you are, you forgive yourself for not being what you ultimately could be, and now you're learning how to achieve whatever that's going to be. Like, that's it, man. That's it. That's the end of story. That's the path.
I mean, how could those things not be learning lessons? You and I have so much in common in our paths of dialing ourselves in. When I first started in real estate, we didn't have any money. We were really in a hard place, and I said to myself, like, man, I'm so terrified. Like, I was throwing up in my car. I was crying every morning because I was worried about what people would think if I failed. That's it. Like, what would I look like if I fail? What would my wife's dad think of me? He didn't give a shit. Like, he just wanted me to be happy. That's all. And what would my dad think? I can't be an entrepreneur, and I come from all 7 generations of entrepreneurs. What the hell? So I literally said, look, dude, if you could just learn one additional thing and just work one additional minute every single day, like exponentially by the end of the month, by the end of the year, you'll be way better. So that's along the same lines. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that mentality because I think this world teaches us to like think giant and big, huge goals and all this big stuff, this, jumbo, whatever. And it's really just those tiny little pieces that add up to the big, right? Like that one step, one blade in front of the other for another 50 miles adds up to finishing the race. I don't know how the hell you did that. But like, let me
I
ask
don't
you
know
something.
either.
Why in your mind, why was, hey man, 30 miles is pretty damn great. 30
Mm-hmm.
miles on rollerblades. I'm okay with this, and I'm gonna now set this as my benchmark. And next time I'm gonna go 35 miles or 50 miles or whatever. How come that wasn't a thought process? Would that be giving up or
Sometimes you got to know when to give up, but I feel like if I set a goal, I don't want to fail at it. And if if I'm purposely setting positive, um, I don't know if it's altruistic, but like the goal, kind of goals you want to set. Like if I set a goal of I want to get fat again and become a smoker, I'm not sure that's the right goal. Okay,
right? Doesn't serve you.
so so if I'm setting good goals and I'm setting achievable goals, which usually they're achievable one way or another, right?
Yeah,
If I told you right now, if I said, look, dude, I sorry, we got to cut our thing short. I need you to walk to Vegas. You'd be like, hell no. And I go, okay, well, if you don't walk here in the next 7 days, then yeah, you're never going to see your daughter again. You'd walk here, right? You would
start
do
right
it.
now. Yeah,
So you set your goal, and I'm not saying that every goal needs to be that, but when you set a high enough goal, I just didn't want to fail. So like quitting smoking, I didn't want to fail at quitting smoking. I didn't want to sign up for a race and tell myself you're able to do this, figure it out, and then quit, because I didn't want to let myself down. And
totally
obviously
get it.
I've had to quit a race or two
Yeah,
because of injury or potentially being not healthy for me or whatever, because I've done some pretty insane stuff. Um, but knowing when to quit's okay. But that's why, because I don't want to quit. And
yeah,
if I need to, I'll set lower goals. But if I set a goal, I got to figure out a way to achieve it, because you got to figure out a way to
yeah.
get through life, right? It's not going to be easy all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's and really what you're saying is you're setting goals based on what's at stake. So if you said, "Hey, you got to walk to Vegas in 7 days," it'd be like, "Yeah, whatever, man. I'll see you there tonight." Based on what's at stake, I would hop on a plane. Yet if you said you'll never see your kids again unless you walk here in 7 days, like that's something big at stake, which is making me move toward action regardless of consequences to me. So
Yeah,
I would just, I pack some water and figure some things out and a solar charger,
you
and I
do it,
get some new shoes and I walk. Actually,
and you would
probably it
accomplish it.
wouldn't be a bad walk actually through the desert.
Right. And by the way, after you did it, you wouldn't go, I'm a stud. You wouldn't go,
No,
oh my God, I'm something special. You wouldn't do that. So I'm not doing these things to be to have some kind of shining light on me. I'm doing it because I set a goal and I want to feel good about myself for
right.
giving my best. Most of the time I want to accomplish it, but I want to feel good about myself because I never really cared what I felt about myself. I
Yeah.
only cared what I thought other people cared. And they don't. And so it is a little bit self-centered. It's a little bit self-focused, but it certainly isn't like I don't walk around with 18 Ironman medals around my neck, and I don't, I don't go, oh, I did this 5,000-mile bike ride, aren't I special? No, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because I want to feel good about myself because it's a
Yeah, it's
hard thing to
interesting.
do, man. It's a hard thing to do
Well, let's
to
talk
feel good
about
about
that.
yourself.
Yeah, well, I want to get into that 5,000-mile bike ride that you did across this country. Well, across
Hmm.
and up across the country and then up the East Coast,
Yeah,
and why you did that, and like I mean, I have so many questions. I don't even know where to start with that. I can understand like a 500-mile bike journey. It's like, oh man, that
yeah,
guy's gonna bike from here to Sequoia National Park or Redwoods or something like that, which is like 700
yeah.
miles. The 5,000 miles, like, man, that is a long time to be thinking about such a crazy endeavor, and you're
It's a
like,
long, it's a long way.
how long did that take you? Was it straight?
I did it in 41 days, so 4,700 miles in 40
Wow.
40 no 40 yeah 45 days, but I biked 41 of the 45 days.
Okay.
So I did it in very, very short order. If you know anything about biking, that's 120 miles a day, a
That's a
lot of
lot.
wind, a lot of hills, a lot of it carrying a lot of my gear on a heavy
Right.
bike, a lot of flats because I was on the interstates. And I did 41 out of 45 days. So if anybody has ever heard of the Tour de France, I basically did back-to-back Tour de France's without a peloton, without a group of bikers to help
Right.
pull me along, um, with a little bit more climbing. So it
Wow.
was brutal. It was physically brutal. But I'll tell you
How do you
the
train for
short
something like that?
doing it. I mean, if
Okay.
you're a normal human being, you train by just doing it. Because how I don't know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I mean, how do you train for a 5,000-mile bike ride? Just go do a 5,000-mile bike ride.
Yeah, well, like how do you know how do you know about conditions, and where are you going to sleep, and what are you going to eat,
It
and
was
how are
a
you going to
lot of
fuel?
planning.
There
Yeah, it
was a
was a
lot of
lot
planning.
of
Okay.
planning.
Okay.
So I did it as a charity event, right? So I'll
Right.
give you the real skinny on it, Ian. So when my sister finally passed away from cancer, which was about a 4-year journey for her, I was really touched by a recurring theme that kept coming up, and it drew me to try to want to uh, give it some attention and try to see if I could make
Sure.
an impact on this one topic. And this one topic was that I felt people, when it came to trauma, were really good about dealing with the tasks of the trauma. In cancer's case, how do I get my kids seen while I'm getting chemo? How do I navigate time off of work? How do I go find a good doctor? How do I reduce the stress in my life? These kind of things they were good about. But it didn't matter, Ian, if it was a doctor or a patient or a loved one, a survivor, a parent, a child, or whatever. The emotional side of it, they weren't real equipped to talk about.
Sure.
How do you feel about dying? How do you
Sure.
how do you feel about the fact that you're not doing well and everybody in your life is doing well? How does that affect you on an
Mm.
emotional level? These kind of things they weren't real open to talking about. And I wanted to figure out why. And so I interviewed like tons of different people over a couple of year period to get really deep into their lives, all different kinds of people, different ages, different type of cancer. But really the most important thing of it was, what were the traumas that they had to overcome from young adulthood and adolescence that either allowed them to process this emotional thing or prevented them from doing it. And so what I wanted the reader to be able to do was to say, okay, now I know a little bit about Ian and maybe the difficulties of his childhood and young adulthood. And I see what he's going through and the difficulties that he's going through. What can I learn from that so that when I have a situation in my life that's kind of like that, I might know how to better talk to that person and
Yeah.
form a more deeper, authentic connection, with a loved one, a friend, a whomever. And that's what I was trying to shed some light on. So when I interviewed these people, and for a couple of years, I thought, well, if we're all connected by emotion, we're connected by story. Why don't I just ride my bike to all of them and connect them? Because I hadn't met most of them in person. So I just said, let me go meet them all in person. And it gave me a chance to meet a shit ton of people along the way. And I was just seeing hospitals and going to cancer centers and doing media and stuff like that. But it gave me a chance to contemplate the stories more, gave me a chance to meet them for the first time and really connect the stories. And it also, thankfully, let me meet people all day, every day, all across the country who said something like this. Oh, my friend at work, their child just got diagnosed with something. I don't even know what the hell to say to him. What the hell do I say
Sure.
to him? Oh, my grandfather just died and I don't know what the heck to say to my grandma. I mean, I feel so bad. I don't even know how to talk to her about it. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I have the answers to that, but I think I bring really compelling, evocative, inspiring stories that shed a little bit of light on how people have or haven't been able to do that so that maybe we can learn and apply some of those tools to our own relationships. So there's a short kind of synopsis of how it all took place. And the bike ride was my way of connecting all those stories.
Yeah, man. That's truly spectacular. I mean, I don't even know the right word for that. Not only the bike ride, it's not the bike ride that's actually spectacular. It's the fact that to bring awareness. I mean, how are there, like, the participants of this? Their lives have to be altered positively, right? I mean, they had to be. Like,
A lot of
you
them.
had some of the deepest conversations they've ever had in their lives.
Oh, I know I did
Yeah.
because multiple times, every single one of them multiple times told me, well, yeah, okay, we can talk about that, but I've never really talked to anybody about that. And look, I'll just give you a simple explanation, example of how I think the book really helps. Okay. So we all know the guy that we think is going through something. We don't know really what, but we think they're going through something because we know something's not right. And we go, "Hey, Ian, like, dude, I'm worried about you. Is everything all right? Like, is there something that's going on?" And you're like, "Dude, I'm fine. Like, seriously. I mean, everybody's got stresses. I'm all good. Don't worry about me. Just go about your life." We all know that guy,
Sure.
right? Now, what I know is that you are going through something, but I don't think that we have enough of a connection that you're willing to risk telling me that something's wrong. Because when you were a kid, Ian, you went through some really hard things. Anytime you leaned on somebody, they either one made fun of you or they abandoned you or they made you feel like a loser, right? So now you've learned how to just deal with your own crap on your own, right? So no way are you going to let anybody in. No way are you going to appear weak. No way are you going to burden me with your problems because that's not the way you're wired. But
Sure.
if you and I are brothers and I want to connect with you on a different level, I got to figure out a way to have a hard conversation with you to go, Ian, so when you say you're okay, is it because I'm an asshole and you don't want to tell me like what's going on? Is it because you're afraid that if you tell me, I'm going to get freaked out and go run for the hills? Like, are you think that I don't care? Or do you not want to rely on me? Why is it that you're not telling me? Because I'm telling you, I see it all over you and I care. So let's talk about it. Or when you can't talk about it, please let me know because I'm here and I want to talk to you about
Yeah.
it. Right? Does that resonate somewhat with you?
100%. And the other part of people, and I find this a lot in our masterminds, is they just don't have the skills to articulate and get that vulnerable. One, because they have the trauma that hurt them and it shelled them up so much, and two, they just never learned the skills to share that much. Even if they're willing to, they don't know how to get that deep. It's so deep down that they have to bust through all this layer of rock and all the shit that has been put on top of them throughout their whole life. And plus, as men, we're not really taught to share vulnerably and openly and
Right.
emotionally. And so someone who's going through some really deep shit, I mean, the other thing is, like, one of the biggest fears that I had with my wife up until 2018 was I I don't want to cry in front of her. I don't want her to think I'm a pussy. I don't want her to think that I'm weak and
Right.
that I can't take care of her. What, like, it'll change our relationship. That was my literal thought about it. How dumb is that, thinking back now? But I thought about that and I thought, if I show her my emotional side, if I get vulnerable with her, it'll change the dynamic of our relationship. And I think people are thinking that same thing too. Like, yeah, this guy wants to hear from me. Maybe the other thing is, well, maybe he's going to try and take advantage of me if I get that vulnerable and open. So there's a lot of blocks that people
There's
have from getting that deep, you know?
so much
Yeah.
going on, and
Yeah.
what I realized, I knew it, but what I really knew it when I delved into this project is that you never know what people are dealing with, and you never know what they have dealt with. You just don't. You just don't know. And it's not from a judging. It's not from a let me compare my situation to yours. Excuse me. But you just don't know what people have gone through and what they're going through. And you can't live your whole life walking around wondering about that question. But when it comes to the few people or the many people that you want to build meaningful, deep relationships with, it's important to really understand that because you and I might be talking and everything is great and whatever, but you might not know, and I'm going to disclose something that's the truth. You might not know that I'm still somewhat traumatized by when I was 18 and I left home.
Yeah.
My car broke down in Vegas, and through a series of circumstances, a couple of days later, I got robbed at gunpoint of everything that I owned.
Hmm.
I ended up living out of my car with less than $1 in my pocket, a carton of cigarettes in the back, and nobody to call.
Yeah.
And
That's
I'm
traumatizing.
like, fuck, man, it's still living with me 40 years later, right? Nearly
Wow.
40 years later. And it's like, man, I don't want any sympathy for it. I don't need you to say, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you." Whatever. But it's something that lives inside of me. And
Sure.
when people when people go, "Man, I had it rough, dude." I'm just thinking to myself, "Yeah, we all had it rough. You might
Right.
not know how rough I had it. I definitely have no idea how rough you had it. But don't tell me you had it rough like it's some kind of competition."
Right.
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 So we just don't know what people have gone through. And if we can, the people that are important to us, if we can take a minute to learn what's behind that thought process of we just don't know what they've gone through or what they're going through, that if we want to connect with them in a more authentic, real, connective way to help them or us get through a difficult minute or a difficult span of time, then we have to develop some of those tools you just mentioned we don't have
Mm-hmm.
for connecting with each other. And I think by bringing the stories the way I brought them, they're all very inspirational, all very, very personal. By bringing those stories to the reader, I think I hopefully are giving people a few tools.
Yeah. One of the breakthroughs I had with my mom, um, and I like to use plant medicine to go a little farther, a little deeper, a little faster.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I realized about my birth was that I was a preemie 6 weeks early, and I was in the NICU in an incubator for like 5 or 6 weeks after that. And I'd always kind of blame my mom for some shit, like about unconditional love and conditional love. And in this plant medicine journey that I did by myself, and my family was back east at my parents' house, um, I saw my mom like so fucking scared. And I thought about it and I was like, oh my God, I've never ever opened up a conversation to ask my own mother what the fuck she was going through. How selfish of
Right.
me to just blame her for some bullshit. And I never even looked at the other side. And I
Yeah.
thought, and I called my wife about it. My wife was like, yeah, I mean, how would you feel if one of our kids like was early and the doctor was like, well, I mean, let's see what happens tonight, 30% chance. And you're like, what the fuck? Are
Yep.
you kidding me? Like I
Yep.
was scared with them sucking boogers out of her nose, like
Right.
crazy shit.
Right.
So when I finally called my mom and said, hey, I want to talk to you about something like serious. Are you okay with that? And she said, sure. And I said, I just want to apologize to you. And by the way, anybody listening, I didn't start with anything but what I'm sorry for. I didn't go, hey, mom, what was it like for you when I was born? I just wanted to apologize because I never sought to understand. And I said, I just want to apologize for something. I never, ever asked you what you went through the day I was born. And I'm really sorry about that. Would you tell me if it's not too hard? And she was like, sure. It was the worst day of my fucking life and the best day of my life. It was the scariest time I've ever had in my
Wow.
entire life. And I am traumatized by that moment. And then, all I prayed for was you to make a sound. And my prayers were answered because you haven't shut up since. Like, just joking. But she was like, it was the hardest time in my life because I didn't know if when I woke up in the morning, they were going to come to me and say, "Hey, your son died tonight." Like,
That's
holy fuck, man,
hardcore.
that chokes me up. And I'm the
Yeah.
son I'm talking about in that, and I'm alive.
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
really tough. And so I wanted to piggyback on what you're saying, because we've been all over in this conversation, and it's all been gold after gold after gold. I don't know how I'm going to describe this
Ah.
conversation. I don't know how I'm going to put a title to it. But like that really changed something in the relationship with my mom. And I even talked to my dad about it too, because I said the same thing to him. I'm really sorry that I never asked you. I just thought you were such a trooper and such a tough guy, And he said, no, it was really hard for me because my mom died so early in my life that I never I needed to get close to you. And like, I was so scared, like, oh my God, what if my son gets taken? Like, holy shit. And I'm going to be devastated. So seek to understand what someone else is dealing with in their lives. And I used to teach my salespeople that all the time. Don't think that just because you called them and they hung up on you, that it's on you. Their dog could have just got run over by a car.
Yep.
You don't know. You don't know.
Yep.
Seek to
Yep.
understand. Like, I can
Yeah.
see you're upset and I'm so sorry. Is it my call, or is there something else going on that I might be able to help you with? Oh man, this person just got, terminal illness and we've got to sell their house. Okay, well, I'd be honored to help you if that's something that you want. Other than that, like, I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah.
Like, seek to understand. That's human connection at the
Right.
finest, deepest level.
Right. But those
I
are
love that you brought
hard
that up.
conversations to have,
Sure.
and
Sure.
to find a safe space where your mom knows that your motive is pure, where you
Yes.
feel that your motive is pure, and where you can find a safe space for you guys to connect on a level that you haven't before, to understand a little bit of what's behind, that you never know what people are going through or what they've gone through. That's really hard to do. And even with people like a mom that you're very close to, it's really hard conversations to have. And everybody has that same problem, especially when it comes to trauma,
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
some degree. And that's what drew me to the project. That's what made me find very compelling, very evocative stories that were all over the place. And we deal with a drug addiction and abuse and suicide of a parent and loss and losing love, finding love. We deal with all the kind of things that we all deal with, and just give a real raw insight into the emotions behind it, so that maybe we can be inspired to have a hard conversation with people in our lives.
Yeah. Here's how I'm gonna wrap this. I can tell you right now that I was never the person that could have that conversation with my mom until I moved the shit out of the way and actually was able to have that conversation with my mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ego and all the other bullshit. So what we talked about in the beginning with the mirror work is exactly how you were able to dive this deep and have these, like, literal, like what you say, inspiring deep human connection through life-changing series, like,
Mm-hmm.
or life-changing stories. It's because of who you became. And that's literally my mission on this planet through the Mental on Purpose world, is to help men evolve into the greatest, most, purposeful version of them, for themselves, their spouses, their kids, their careers, and their community. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. The only way that you actually were able to do all those things was by evolving you and getting out of your own way. And that mirror work was the catalyst to it all. And so I want to tell you again, the book Mirror Work, fantastic.
Right.
Your book, Cycle of Lives, just let's share a little bit about it, where people can get it. Cause I think you're doing amazing stuff. Like, yeah, I'm so happy
Thanks.
to have you on here.
Thank you. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I knew we'd have a great conversation, and I'm glad we got a chance to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so Cycle of Lives is a book that, it's available wherever books are sold. I made a commitment to the 15 participants that made the book that I would give 100% of the net proceeds to the charities that they chose. Those are listed in the book. They're also on my website. So wherever you buy the book, it's an Audible version, which if you listen to Audibles, it's sick. 15 different professional actors doing each one of the 15 stories. It makes it really interesting. It's not a book about cancer. It's a book about uh, trauma and what people have gone through, what they're going through.
Hmm.
And the stories are very inspiring. They're very uplifting. They're very forward thinking. Some of them are a little bit tragic. But you know, what I've been told multiple times is, one, the book is going to move, it's very moving. But the other thing I've been told is, God, I'm so shocked about like how uplifted I feel, right? Because
Yeah.
because to see what people overcome, or to see their views being positive and forward thinking, even after all the shit they've gone through,
Yeah.
it really helps give some much needed perspective to the world. So yeah, the book is Cycle of Lives. Anywhere books are sold, proceeds go to charity. They're listed in the book and listed on the
Love it.
website. And yeah, you get the book, get a tool or two, and make a deeper connection.
This has been a really awesome conversation. Like I said, I when I first got your one sheet over, I wrote back and I said, "Hey, I'm a little afraid this is going to be a very depressing conversation and too down." And the last thing people need is me crying more on this podcast, depressive shit. So I really appreciate where this went, man. And what's interesting is I know a lot of people that have podcasts and they'll all say like, man, I spend 2 hours prepping for every hour podcast. And I'm telling you right now, I could not have prepped at all for what came out.
Hmm.
I still maintain that the universe will deliver the guests that are supposed to be here, that the audience wants to hear, and that if you just go with the flow, and I have a little bit of structure, I know what I'm doing at this point.
Yeah.
Like what will come out of not being quote unquote super prepared is
Hmm.
fucking gold. Like today, I could have
Yeah.
never prepared for that based on your one sheet. I never could have prepared for that. And so I stand by the fact for anybody who has a podcast out there, follow my advice. Don't worry about downloads. Worry about the message and the mission, and the universe will deliver the rest. I just stay out of the way. I promise. I promise that is true. We have 100 and some plus episodes. I've never done more than 10 minutes prep for any of them, and they're all
Yeah,
awesome.
that's great. And they're great. I mean, your
Yeah,
episodes are
thank
great.
you.
So
Yeah,
I would say, yeah, for sure. And I do appreciate the opportunity. I love having true, like authentic
yeah,
conversations. It's really pretty cool. And to know that, that we're like-minded in that way. Like we don't have competing, messages, right?
yeah.
We were just trying to be our best selves, and maybe inspire for a minute or for
Of
an
course,
hour
of
somebody
course.
else to be working hard to be their best selves. How cool is that?
It's the ultimate. It's ultimately fulfilling. It's aligned. It feels
Hmm.
great. I can look in the mirror every day and go, man, you actually made some impact on this world today. Every day, every day, every day. And it's a feeling that you can never buy, and you actually have to do the work to find it. It's like a treasure. You just have to do the work to find it, which you got to remove the trauma. You have to move the trauma out of the way and the programs around the trauma, which by the way,
Yep.
you should come back on here. We should just dig into trauma stuff because I
Let's do
love
it.
talking
That's
about that.
that's
And
that's
uh,
my biggest joy right now in life. Outside of the personal life is I do expressive writing workshops, and that's to help
yeah,
people have new conversations with themselves so that they can um, get some therapeutic self-talk about the traumas in their life, the issues in their life, the emotions that are going on. And I did one this morning, and it's the greatest thing in the world. The
I
greatest
love
thing in
that,
the
man.
world.
David Richman, thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you.
All right. Well, let's stay connected, Ian, and I'll come on when you think it makes sense. When the universe says, "Dude, get that Richmond dude on again," and
I
then,
certainly will.
yeah, let's stay connected.
Absolutely. And audience, I know for a fact that you enjoyed this one, and that's not me being egotistical. That's just me saying you were meant to hear this today. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Totally. Thank you.